Hi, everyone, and welcome. As someone who had the privilege of studying under the great Professor Mankiw, I'm really excited to share with you what is, without a doubt, the most fundamental tool for understanding our world. We're talking about supply and demand.
So let's just jump right in with a super simple question you probably face every single day. Why does a cup of coffee cost what it does? Why isn't it 50 cents? Why isn't it $50? It might seem random, but I promise you, it's not. Economics gives us this beautiful answer.
And you know what? The answer for basically anything you buy comes down to just two incredibly powerful, kind of invisible forces. It's this constant push and pull between buyers, that's us, and sellers. If you can get a handle on the behavior of these two groups, you can understand almost any market out there, from coffee to cars.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for the next few minutes. We're going to start with the buyer's story, which is all about demand. Then we'll flip to the seller's story, or supply. We'll see what happens when they meet at the market's magic point, equilibrium. Then we'll look at what happens when the market shifts. And finally, we'll wrap up with how prices guide us. Let's dive in.
All right, part one, the buyer's story, demand. So let's start with us. What's really going on in our heads when we decide to buy something?
It really all boils down to a fundamental law of human behavior, something you already know intuitively, the law of demand. All it says is that, everything else being equal, when the price of something goes up, we want to buy less of it, right? It just makes sense.
Okay, let's make this real. Take a look at this simple table for someone named Sophia and her demand for muffins. See how it works? When a muffin is just $1, she's like, yeah, I'll take 14 of those. But as that price creeps up, $2, $3, she buys fewer and fewer. By the time it hits $6, she's only buying 4. That's the law of demand, right there in the numbers.
Now, this next point is absolutely crucial. There are two different things that can happen. On one hand, you have a change in quantity demanded. That's just us moving up and down that line we saw with Sophia purely because the price of the muffin itself changed. But on the other hand, you have a change in demand. This is a totally different beast. This is when the entire curve shifts. It's caused by something else, like maybe Sophia gets a pay raise and now she wants more muffins at every single price. One is a movement along the curve, the other is a whole new curve. Big difference.
Okay, enough about us buyers. Let's flip the coin and look at the other side of the story, the seller's story, supply. What's driving the people who actually make and sell the stuff?
And just like with demand, there's a really simple, intuitive rule here called the law of supply. And it's basically the exact opposite. For sellers, a higher price is fantastic news. It means more potential profit. So when the price of a good goes up, they are willing to produce and sell more of it. Makes perfect sense, right?
And again, let's look at the numbers. Here's a hypothetical supply schedule for Starbucks. At just $1 per muffin, they're probably thinking, it's not really worth our time. They only supply 3. But look what happens when the price hits $6. All of a sudden, it's a great business. The ovens are fired up, and they're cranking out 18 muffins. More money, more muffins. That's the law of supply.
All right, this is my favorite part, the market's magic point, equilibrium. We've looked at buyers, we've looked at sellers, each with their own agenda. Now let's bring them together in the marketplace and see where they finally agree.
And that meeting point has a name, equilibrium. Think of it as the market's natural resting place, its happy place. It's that one specific price where the number of things people want to buy is exactly the same as the number of things sellers want to sell. No leftovers, no one left wanting. It's perfectly balanced.
So check this out. We've combined our demand and supply tables. At $1, people are demanding 21 muffins, but sellers are only willing to supply 5. Not going to work. Jump up to $5, and now sellers are making 25, but people only want 9. Again, disaster. But look right there at $3. Bam! Quantity demanded is 15, and quantity supplied is 15. That's it. That's our magic number. That is the equilibrium.
What's so cool is how the market naturally finds its way to that point. If the price is too high, you get a surplus. Think about it. Shelves full of leftover muffins that nobody bought. What are sellers going to do? They're going to have a sale, right? They'll lower the price. On the flip side, if the price is too low, you get a shortage. The muffins fly off the shelves, and you have disappointed customers. Sellers will see this and think, hey, we could be charging more. Both a surplus and a shortage create pressure that pushes the price right back towards that equilibrium.
Okay, so understanding equilibrium is one thing, but the real power of this model, and this is where it gets really fun, is using it to analyze what happens when the real world throws a curveball. Let's look at what happens when the market shifts.
And Professor Mankiw taught me this incredibly useful, simple, three-step method to figure out what's going to happen. Step 1. Decide if the event affects the supply curve or the demand curve. Is this about buyers or sellers? Step 2. Decide which way the curve shifts. Are they going to want more or less? And step 3, just look at your graph and see how that shift changes the new equilibrium price and quantity. That's it.
Let's put our three-step process to the test with a real-world scenario. Let's say you hear on the news that the price of donuts is about to skyrocket. So, what happens to the market for muffins? Think about it for a sec.
Okay, did you get it? Let's break it down with our 3 steps. Step 1, who does this affect? Well, it affects buyers' decisions, so this is a shift in the demand curve. Step 2, which way does it shift? Well, if donuts are more expensive, muffins suddenly look like a much better deal, right? So people will want to buy more muffins. Demand shifts to the right. And step 3, what's the result? A rightward shift in demand means we find a brand new equilibrium at a higher price and a higher quantity. More muffins are sold and they cost more. See how powerful that is?
So, let's zoom out. We've built this whole framework. What's the big final takeaway? Why does all of this matter so much? This is the conclusion of the story, how prices guide us.
It really comes down to this single, beautiful idea. In a market economy, prices aren't just random numbers on a tag. They are signals. They're like a giant invisible traffic cop for the economy, guiding how we use all of our scarce resources. They tell sellers what to make and buyers what to conserve. I mean, think about it. That single price for a cup of coffee is the result of millions, literally millions, of individual decisions made by buyers and sellers all over the world. It contains an incredible amount of information about what we all collectively want and what we're collectively able to produce. And after all that complexity, it all just boils down to these 2 fundamental forces. Just 2, supply and demand.
And that right there, that interaction, that elegant dance, that is the very engine that drives a market economy. Once you understand that engine, I promise you, you'll have the power to understand the economic world in a whole new way.
So I'm going to leave you with a final thought, a little piece of homework. The very next time you go to buy something, anything at all, just take a second and look at the price and ask yourself, what are the supply forces and what are the demand forces that met in the middle to create that exact number? What story is that price tag telling you?